Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just kick us off here. I know folks will still be coming in, but I want to make sure that we utilize our full hour. So I'll just briefly introduce myself. I know I've met a ton of you already, but my name is Allie Michaels. I'm the Technology Advancement Manager with Launch Tennessee, which is a statewide organization here in Tennessee that works to support startups and entrepreneurship, really statewide. And we do have a special focus on commercialization and specifically SBIR and STTR grants and how we can bring more of those to the state of Tennessee. And so I'm super excited that we have both Richard and Luca here to share with you some information about NIH and NSF in particular, but really overall kind of about the SBIR process, as well as what their company does to support companies like you all. So I think I'll just leave it to you all to give a little introduction. So Luca, do you want to go ahead and take it away? Oh, one more thing. We are going to utilize the chat feature for questions. So if you guys have questions as we go, please feel free to put them in there, and we'll answer those along the way as we can, as well as there'll be some time at the end. So, okay, with that, I'll let Luca, you take it from here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ali, for the introduction and for letting us taking this webinar. I hope it's going to be interesting for all of you, so that you can actually know more. Quick introduction about us. So I'm Luca. I've got experience in public funding, raising fundings for companies. So with Inspiralia, we help companies to raise over 500 million into funding. So this is our knowledge. I'm an electronic telecommunication engineer, and I've been working in many different projects. So I've got experience into getting the concept and making sure that we really understand and get the best out of each project. Richard?
So apparently Spacebar does not work to unmute me. I thought it did in Zoom, but anyway. So yeah, I'm Rich McKay. I'm the VP of Healthcare Technologies at Inspiralia. Basically, all of the healthcare, or I would say most of the healthcare projects that come through Inspiralia come through my group. Most of those go to the NIH, as you would imagine, but some of them go to other agencies as well. So my team is highly specialized in dealing with the NIH and its peculiarities and difficulties. But yeah, as Lucas said, my background is cell and molecular biology, but we handle a very, very broad array of projects, from things to AI to pretty much anything you can imagine that touches the healthcare arena. So I'm really, really glad you guys showed up to listen to us, and looking forward to a good webinar.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard. So let's just spend a few minutes to introduce what SBIR is and STTR. Most of you probably would already know what it is, but just a brief introduction. So SBIR is actually the largest source of federal funding for early stage R&D. So basically, it takes zero equity, and I think this is very important for all of you to know. It's a grant and it's not a loan, so you don't have to pay it back. And the average funding release is 1.5 million, so it really helps out companies to develop their ideas. So anything that is related to research and development, this is where you can really get the most out of it. It's a program that has been out since 1982. 41 billion have been released. So as you can imagine, is actually very useful for innovative companies to take advantage of it. So few of the important thing that needs to be mentioned, that to apply to the SBIR eligibility, it's a must. So it needs to be a USA-based company, has to be a small business, so less than 500 employees. There are no limitation in terms of revenues, but with the 500 employees, this is how they sort of manage to get a range of companies that could actually apply. A very important thing is also that the company must have a physical address. This is very important in terms when it comes to registration. So there is a very long process that needs to be done correctly. We've seen companies that actually fail during the registration process, or actually had to go back to a previous stage and miss the deadline. So registration is very important. And one thing that you need to know that the company needs to have a physical address, is not a shared co-working space with other. Another part, the principal investigator, so the PI, must be employed by the company on a 40-hour payroll. A third of the activities could be subcontracted. This is a reason why we know that small businesses do not have full knowledge to actually carry out the project on their own. So this is why a third of it is actually allowed to be subcontracted. And the R&D work has to be done on American soil. So SBIR, who actually participate to the SBIR, there are 11 different agencies. They are all listed on the left-hand side of the screen between the Department of Agriculture, Commons, Defense, Energy, NIH, as Richard has actually said, NASA and National Science Foundation. Today, we're going to take some time to really go through the NIH and the NSF. As you can see on the slide, the figure is not showing really well, but the budget for the NIH will be 1.15 billion, while for the NSF is 212 million. Both of them are under the green color, which means they are grant. That really means that the SBIR gives out this money for R&D purposes. So it's a, let's call it a trial and error project that they would like you to do and just really move forward, rather than having a contract where you can see the Department of Defense has got much more budget, but you sort of have a direct contract with the Department of Defense. So they really ask you to deliver a product. Technology readiness level for both projects, for both agencies, is lower rather than the Department of Defense or contracts side of it. This is how we differentiate the different agencies. So between top down and bottom up, we like to participate mainly on the bottom up approach because they really open up several companies to provide their ideas into the business. So NSF, NIH, and DOE are the ones that are considered bottom up. On the top down, it's also very interesting, but they will come up with very specific needs. So you need to really work around those instead of bringing up your idea. Now, let's go into the National Science Foundation, 7.1 billion that would actually been allowed throughout the years in research funding. Over 200 million to small businesses and projects with high technological risk innovations. It's a bottom-up approach, like we said before, and they're really looking for companies that have got a development of an innovative deep technology, meaning that the risk needs to be very high. So your project needs to be very ambitious, let's say, and your work plan needs to be very risky. So it needs to be an innovative technology that you really want to bring forward. There is also within this program, they prefer minimal use of humans subject of healthcare topic. This is good because it allows you to split eventually the project into two, as Richard would actually say in the future. You could double up the project. You could do part of the work under the NSF and what is related to the healthcare divided into two. It works on 4 different windows submission, one in March, one in June, one in September, and one in December. All of them usually are towards the beginning of the year. The one coming up would be in March. So it's basically less than a month. Will be practically impossible to do any application for this deadline because you need to understand that writing of this proposal, it's as challenging as delivering the project. So it takes time, takes a lot of experience. So it's important to know exactly what needs to be done. So the June deadline is the next one available where you could actually apply in case one of the ideas that you have would fit this program. The most important criteria for the for this agency. It needs to be an early stage, needs to be a revolutionary technology, high risk, as I said before, for R&D, and needs to be strong scientifically. So the NSF, just to understand if this is going to be good for you, you need to have staff, you need to have facilities to deliver your project, and you need to also have time to dedicate to your project, not just in the writing aspect, because we would take a lot on board from it. So like I would say 90% of the work will be done by us in case we will help you into this, but 10% into making sure that the project is spotless. But the 2 years that you need to have of the project delivery needs to be done by the actual company. So this is a repeat. So the good project idea needs to be innovative, revolutionary, and focus on lower TRL. So technology readiness level needs to be low, with the TRL being low. These are some, or actually almost all the topic that the NSF would cover. As you can see, and this is why we consider it bottom up, it's very broad. So it would go from advanced manufacturing, advanced material, artificial intelligence, information technology, Internet of Things, medical devices, what it concerns, prototyping and the science behind it. But it will also go into quantum technology, robotics, power management. So as you can see, it's very broad. So let's now spend some time to describe how this is set up. As all the rest of the SBIR, it's divided into a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So the journey that you need to take to deliver this project would move from phase 1 being the concept development, so where the project is really at low TRL. It's a project that goes from 6 to 12 months, depending on the activities that you need to do, and the maximum that you can actually obtain during the phase 1 is 256,000, and is dedicated to do R&D activities of the project. Okay, once this is completed, you would actually move to the phase 2, which is more like a prototype development. So bringing everything that was done, so all the pre-work on its concept development, to a more advanced product. So moving from the TRL 4, where you left it, or 4.5, let's say, to a 6 or 7. So having a prototype or a product that is closer to the market. So to make sure that you're all aware of the TRL scale, goes from 0 to 9, 0 being just an idea, 4 having some concept developed, 6 is what we consider the prototype, and 9, it's actually reaching the market. The amount that you can actually get is $1 million still to do all the R&D activities, and the project could go from 12 to 24 months on a milestone-based program that you'll actually do during the phase 2 writing. Phase 3 has got no amounts linked to it, because it's actually done directly with the agencies themselves. So eventually they would contact you to do any further development of the project if the agency thinks is necessary. I just left this slide because last week it was actually Sunday 14th, we had the new program released. So it came late, I've got to say. It was challenging for us because, as you can imagine, the March deadline was only confirmed on the 14th. Giving us only 14 days to work on the project. For sure, we advance things onwards, but it's a very long document. It's about over 100 pages. I just want to give out a few topics of what has changed for who of you have actually participated to the NSF project before. So the project description has slightly changed from 10 pages, is now 10 pages on a total of 15. The section 3 is about innovation, where you need to describe the technical solution, there is an important change on the broader aspect of it. So you need to describe how the produced product or service offer the potential for broader social and economical benefit in the US soil. I mean, these are just a few. Obviously, it's a very long document. I don't want to give out all of it, but what we do, and this is part of our knowledge, is to really go through all of it and making sure that we have everything clear to be successful or to provide the best application for the next call, which would be, well, in this case would be March, but we would do the same for June. This is the same document that applies for the entire year. This is what I'm saying, that it came a bit late because it was just 15 days before the first submission of 2021. Usually comes out in December, okay? This is very interesting. This is a review that we did from last year's, and this is to understand exactly which are the best topic that was actually awarded. So we see digital health and pharmaceutical technologies leading these tables, as you can see at the bottom. Sorry, I could not select it properly. With 40, also biomedical technology and medical devices is still 39. So for as much as the NSF says that they do not want to have human-related activities into it, as you can see, they really focus in these kind of technologies. Advanced manufacturing only had 4, but nevertheless, things keep changing. So these are things from 2020, things will be shuffled during 2021. But this is just, with these slides, I want to just show you exactly the kind of technologies and how broad this service would be. Okay, this is, we also divided into areas. So California takes the lead into taking away 65 phase 1 in 2020. So this is the most successful state. Nevertheless, all the rest are more than welcome to apply. It doesn't work on states, so the budget is not really divided into states. It is divided in how innovative is your project and how fit within the program. So other numbers, and this I think is very interesting for you to understand how important it is for you to apply, or if you have the good project. So total award per year are 300. To the date, in 279 were awarded, so they were very close to the target. And the average award was 239,000. Total COVID phase 1 awarded, obviously last year was probably one of the hottest topic, were 65. In the award budget per program director is 25. So these are figures for you to understand how things evolves into the NSF. So word to you, Richard, under the NSF. I'll mute myself and change the slides as you go through.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the National Institutes of Health. So next slide, Luca. So NIH, as part of the Department of Health and Human Services, under HHS is also FDA and CDC. You should know, so they also participate in SBIRs. So a lot of what I'm saying about NIH also fits for FDA and CDC, although they don't give away nearly as much money as NIH does. So little history, NIH was established in 1930 as the National Institute of Health, but in 1944, the NCI, National Cancer Institute, became a division of NIH, and they changed the name to National Institutes of Health. So now you've got actually up to, you've got 27 separate institutes and centers. NIH is the largest biomedical research agency in the world, $32 billion in research funding extramural, and over 1.2 billion of that is set aside for small businesses. So just for you guys. You can see this is the array of institutes that they have. Pretty much anything healthcare related under the sun, cancer, National Eye Institute, Heart, Lung, and Blood, to things like minority health and healthcare disparities, nursing research. So if it's healthcare related in the least, it's going to fit in here somewhere at NIH. So just like NSF, NIH has open calls for SBIRs, virtually any topic that fits into the research mission of its institutes. They also have specific calls for proposals on a variety of very focused topics. They have a big effort on the brain initiative to study the brain, the next big biological frontier, if you will. Things like opioid epidemic, they spend a lot of money on. Alzheimer's disease are very hot topics. And in addition to the open call, they'll put out very specific calls of what they're looking for. And those may or may not have the same deadlines as the SBIRs. The standard deadlines for SBIR, for the open call SBIR is January 5, April 5, and September 5. And again, everything I'm talking about is SBIR. So there's a lot of specific calls for focus topics that are reaching out to you guys, the small businesses in the world, or at least in the US. There's STTR mechanism, which allows for extensive collaboration with university researchers. So, so there's, you don't have to do it all yourself. If you've got a good collaboration with the university, depending on how much they contribute, you can go with an SBIR or an STTR. We can help you with that decision. Again, as Lucas said, funding is non-dilutive, doesn't need to be paid back. 100% equity is yours. All the IP rights are yours. NIH is not looking or asking for any of that. The general structure of the SBIR program is there's a phase one, which typically lasts 6 to 12 months of execution. Again, typically you'll get $256,000 for that. There are certain topics that they allow budget waivers for, so you can ask more. The phase one really requires a solid scientific premise. You don't have to have preliminary data, but if you do, it's certainly better. But it's not required. But you have to have a solid premise. And the idea of the phase one is to establish feasibility. So is your idea, is your potential product feasible to execute? And this is going to pave the way for the phase two, which is where the big money is. Again, phase one's, the emphasis is not so deep on the commercialization plan. That's not required, but it can't be just a research program. It's got to have a reasonable path to a product, and you should be able to point to that at least. Phase two, like I said, that's where the big bucks are. Up to 2 years, up to $1.7 million. The idea is to further develop the technology. Depending on the technology, that could be to full commercialization. Obviously, if you're developing a therapeutic that has to go through FDA clinical trials, $1.7 million in 2 years is not going to do that for you. So there are other mechanisms, like a phase 2B or commercialization readiness pilot program that can bring you more money to help with those types of things. NIH also has what's called a direct to phase two. Not many agencies have this. So you can, even if you haven't gone through a phase one with the NIH, you can apply directly to phase two to get phase two money. But the caveat to this is it really requires very strong feasibility data that was developed outside of the SBIR program. So that's a possibility. We can help guide you through those types of things when we talk about your project. Okay, is the NIH a good fit for you? Same thing as with NSF, is your company eligible? Staff, facilities, time to dedicate to the project, those types of things are absolutely crucial. On the NIH side, Mission Fit is obviously also crucial. This is going to go to one of the NIH institutes, and they're going to decide whether to spend their money on your project. So it's got to fit with their mission. Innovation is less important than it is for the NSF. But whatever you do propose, it's got to fill some sort of gap or meet some unmet need in the healthcare realm. So unlike the NSF, they're not looking for high risk, high reward projects. NIH is a little bit more conservative. And again, I guess also towards that end, you need to be focused. Don't be overly broad. You know, typically you're going to pick one disease indication, even if you've got a platform technology that can be applied to 10 different ones. You're going to pick one, you're going to develop your product, you're going to test it in that disease indication and demonstrate feasibility. So this is the latest data I have from the NIH website is for 2018, but this gives you an idea of who the big funders are. Obviously, NCI, National Cancer Institute, is one of the biggest. NIAID, Allergy and Infectious Diseases. It was big in 2018. Let me tell you, it was much, much bigger in 2020. They pumped a serious amount of extra money into NIAID to address COVID and antivirals and things of that sort. But yeah, so you can see it's, you know, some institutes only have about $4 or $5 million a year to spend. Others have massive amounts of money. But in the next slide, yeah, you can see that over the years, the funding trend has increased massively to the point where in 2020, well, in 2019, I think they were at like $1.2 billion just for SBIRs. So it's been a steady increase, and again, they did pump a lot of extra money into certain institutes in 2020. So I think most, if not all of you, your companies are from Tennessee. So how's Tennessee doing with the NIH? I have results from 2019, unadjusted. The Tennessee results, you guys submitted 49 SBIRs or STTRs in 2019. That ranks 27th in the nation among states, plus the District of Columbia. So 27th out of 51. That's unadjusted. You got 14 of those funded, which is a pretty good funding rate, actually. And $4.6 million out of the SBIR program. So, you know, Tennessee is 16th in the US in population. That makes your 4.6 million when it's adjusted per capita at rank 32nd. So we know you guys can do better. We want to help you do better. And you know, that's our mission. That's what we're looking to do. We know there's a lot of good projects coming out of your state, and we want to hear about them, especially in the healthcare realm. So I'll hand it back to you, Luca.
Yeah. Just unmute myself. Thank you. Okay, to pick up from what Richard said, a couple of things that I want to add to the NSF that I probably did not mention before. The phase 2 is actually not allowed. You need to go through the phase 1, phase 2 procedure. You need to actually have a white paper approved before it. So this is very important. This is a kind of first filter that they would do. STTR with research center is allowed, so you can have a consortium of 2 people, but you can also present your SBIR with your own company and having collaboration with universities, or having a team also composed with people working directly with university. That really helps for your application to be much more effective. Same thing, IP remains yours, and the positive environmental impact is always very important. Okay, so this is just a few things that I wanted to add to make sure that was clear. And project within the NSF and the NIH, and also DoD, as you can see probably in these slides, so AFWERX, you can combine them. So you could actually try to maximize your chances of success by applying to several projects, trying to keep the actual topic or the content of the proposal different, so you can maximize chances of success and going through the application. In these slides, I put the calendar. As you can see, we had January 5th, April 5th, and September 6th for the NIH. March deadline for the NSF, June, September 2nd, December the 2nd. I also add the 8 weeks period. So this is where you can start your project, and this is writing aspect of it, because it takes 8 weeks or 2 months to write a good application. Always, the more time you have, the better it is, the better you can actually get letter of support from institutes or possible clients and so on. And this is very important. So it's always best not to leave it to the last minute, because as you can imagine, it's complicated. You won't get all the information on the day that you request it, and obviously the writing aspect also takes time. So if you have a project, you want to go through the validation and making sure that it's a good fit, always take into account that you have 8 weeks for the writing of it. So this is important, and this also applies to the NIH. I didn't want to add it to the slides, otherwise it would be too crowded, but this is what's really required. So the April deadline, it's something, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, later on, a bit unachievable at present. So our team is already full up, and we're really working at full speed on it. So this is the proposal life cycle on how this would actually work. Concept idea, you need to have an idea really to make sure that it's validated. So, and this is where we actually come into action. We would like to validate the project before we start any work, because as you could see from the timeline, it takes time to really write the application, but not just that. It would take time to wait for the results, if it's positive or not, waiting for the due diligence, the year of the work that we'd actually do during the execution. So this is something we would like to spend time now rather than later on writing an application that are not going to be successful. So this is probably one of the main important thing that we want to make sure once we move forward. Once the project is validated, then we have a kickoff meeting. Our team gets together, the writing team gets together with you, gets all the idea, try to collect all the information. This is probably done in the validation. So, and any other information that could actually be useful. And this is due to determine the objectives, make it risky enough, as we said before, to make it interesting for the NSF or NIH, and so on. Once this is done, during the 8 weeks, you receive drafts of the proposal. So that you review, giving feedback, and send it back to us to obviously incorporate and make sure is spotless. Couple of things. We will challenge things. We're not just going to write anything that is done. It needs to be the objective that you provide needs to be risky, but at the same time needs to be achievable. So we're not just going to write anything that you would like to, but we would just do anything that is actually necessary to be compliant with the NSF, NIH to be successful. Once submitted, obviously have to wait for the results. And also during the process, we actually try to adapt the project to other agencies. As said before, and as you could have seen into the calendar, you could actually jump into different proposals and maximize the chances of success. Inspiralia team that is actually linked to a single project, and this is probably very important to understand it. So account manager would be someone that your first point of contact. So someone that you actually do all the validation with, and make sure that you are eligible, and then make sure that there is the kind of match between the SBIR and your innovative project. Then senior innovation consultant and the specific writer work together with you throughout the process. So the scientific writer is only writing on your project, often is a PhD's writer, mainly because we would like them to speak the same language as you, so as the project. And nevertheless, even if it's not exactly to the same topic, we make sure that is got knowledge to write the application, because this is also very important to handle the several projects. We are not all expert in the same area as you, but at the same time, we understand exactly what they're looking for. So we understand the process very well. So the senior innovation consultant instead is going to be the person that does all the brainstorming with the writer himself, and revise all the documentation before it's actually sent to you. This takes time, and this we do it before and in 2 stages so that you get a better document, even if it's a draft, so you can actually really get a valuable document and add useful feedback. So this is getting back to what I was saying before. 90% of the work is done by us, from the account manager to senior innovation consultant to scientific writer, but also into the project management. If you're new to SBIR, from day one, once we actually start the work, we will do all the project registration for you. So we know exactly what is required, and we won't really, but we make sure that we don't lose time or we don't step back into the process. It's an 8-step process going through the SAM, DUNS, and so on. For who of you have actually presented an SBIR before or has actually done some of the work, you all know that it's a bit tedious. It's administrative task. You need to create your account, and it's not easy. It's not just as opening a Facebook account. It's much more complex, and a lot of information are to be processed correctly. Otherwise, you go back to the process. Submission, of course, we would do the submission for you. So we would create separate account. We would have the access. So we would do anything possible that the submission is smooth on your behalf. And also the project management office does the post-award management. So once the project is done, they won't release you the 256K or the $1 million for the phase 2, but there is also a very defined process, due diligence. So this is all things that add a bit of a hassle for companies. And this is, we find out that gives a great advantage for companies to actually be followed throughout the steps, from winning the proposal, getting the first paycheck in, and obviously anything that is related to the milestone, because we're going to be there for you into the actual process. Richard? Oh.
Yes, thank you. All right, so yeah, well, sorry, I was busy answering some of the things on chat, so I apologize. But yeah, so we can go over just a few of our success stories that we've had, and some of them are multiple agency success stories. FarmSense, we've got an NSF for. They're looking at insect surveillance and pest management. Highlight Technologies is one of our poster child. NSF, AFWorks, and is that a Department of Energy? I can't read that.
Yeah, Department of Energy.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
And a DOE. Yeah, of course, because they have this microgrid solution for the electric grid. CATS water purification, we've received an NSF for, and these are all, I will say, I'm not sure if Luca mentioned it a little bit, but we really try to take on only the best projects. So we spend a lot of time looking at the companies and their projects and what they're trying to do before we bring them on as clients, because we really we really want to get success for you, and and be successful on our end. So it's not surprising that that we have a good success rate, because we're pretty picky about our projects as well. So the next slide shows. Yeah. Sorry. So Luca, this is more on the NSF Dos and Don'ts. Did you want to speak to this?
Okay, basically it's a repeat from what we mentioned before, and it's really to make sure that we have got clear this is just basically to show you what we know and what things could go wrong at times. So basically, the PI in the team needs to have a relevant background. So this is very important. So it needs to have a PhD or needs to be really involved into the topic. So that basically really ticks the boxes for the evaluators to really believe in what it could be deliver. So other points that we could mention here, if the task, as we said before, are not high risk and high reward, are not even considered. If the technology is not innovative, that's obviously not something that we don't really want to take on board into the validation side of it. And this is part of the validation that we would do. So if there is nothing done and it's just an idea, so we consider technology readiness level 0, it's too early stage. You need to have some preliminary work done just to really prove that you've got capability to move things forward. The R&D plan is based on a scientific research only. It's not good enough. So these are just some of the topic. So these are others that I can actually mention. So the small business has 0 funding on a raise 5 million in the funding opportunity. It's not liked by the NSF. So they would actually just the NSF like to come into action or come into play when they could actually see that they are useful to you, so that the money that you would get are really used in a way that are to develop the project. If you have a private investor that gives you $5 million, they would actually see, why would you ask me for $1 million? I mean, you could actually do with that. So these are things that needs to be understood. Obviously, not everyone has got $5 million from private investors. So, but this is one of the things that you need to take into account. They really want to be fair when they're giving out funds. And this is how they do. So the company does not have, so they do want that you have a plan to protect your idea. So the IP for them is very important. So if it's not done at that stage of applying to the phase 1, but it's okay, but they need to understand that you're really going for it. So, and this is part of the thing that you could actually be claim under the budget, but for sure needs to be done properly. Onto the writing side of it, I think this is a slide. It gives a lot of the details, but really makes you understand how we work. So from the kickoff meeting, first draft, second draft, the pitch is also presented as, this is why you see in 2 different slides, because as we said before, pitch needs to be approved prior to getting the phase 1 funded. We have I wouldn't say 100%, but almost 100% conversion rate into the pitch, because this is where we really make sure that we have the project funded. And if we would not do this pitch and write in the NSF at the same time, it wouldn't take 8 weeks, but it would take even more, because time to get the reply back, it's longer. So we really almost go for a certain that we get the pitch approved to really don't lose time. For the June call, we have time. If we want to go step by step, this is something that we can also do. But we prefer this plan so we can really make sure we get the most out of it. We only present the proposal in week 8 and 9. As you can see, actually, there's 1 extra week. Once it's approved by the client, we wouldn't really submit anything that is not approved by all parties. A lot of text here. I'll try to summarize. And I think this is for the phase 1 writing. So pitch, as you can see afterwards, I would like to share this PPT with you, or if you write me, so they can actually get all of this information. There are some links, as you can see, that takes you directly to those application. For the proposal writing, we will actually do the full grant proposal that includes project summary, project description and narrative, so like the storytelling. Nevertheless, think that it's a scientific document, so it doesn't have to be too much of a story. It needs to have concept, like strong concept behind. Also, references are very important. The budget, Excels, and the budget justification, it's a separate file that needs to be also submitted. So it's not just the 15 pages report, also facility, equipment, and other resources, separate document, and so on. Collaboration and other affiliation is also very important to what I was mentioned before with the letter of support. So it's a lot of work. It's really summarized in the point number 2, but there is a lot ongoing behind it. And that's it. Okay, so that's the success stories with what concerns the NIH. Richard, back to you. I think the previous one was actually mine. Sorry.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit more intelligently to these guys. So iTherapy is a great company. They've been doing speech generation to help those with verbal or with communication difficulties or who are nonverbal or minimally verbal, in particular people on the autism spectrum. They've gotten an NIH phase 1 as well as an NSF phase 1. They just finished up execution of their NIH phase 1, and we're currently writing their follow-on phase 2 for them, looking to get them another $1.7 million to further their project. Scanwell is a really cool success story as well. Scanwell, we actually did a direct to phase 2. This company does at-home testing. In this case, it was for chronic kidney disease, and we got them a direct to phase 2. So right off the bat, $1.7 million. They're currently executing now. They've been executing for about the last 6 months and doing quite well. We've been working with them, following their progress on that. Pro-transit nanotherapy. They have a nanoparticle drug delivery technology, and this is the kind of thing that's a platform technology, and these are really cool because what you can do is you can get the multiple phase 1 grants for different indications, and that's the strategy we're taking with them. We've gotten them funded for one of their projects already, and we submitted for a second indication, traumatic brain injury, and they scored well above the pay line, so we're expecting to hear good things about that as well. And that's a great situation to be in when you have a platform therapy. We come up with a nice strategy to develop a series of submissions for phase 1, and you can try a few different things out and see which ones you get traction on and follow up on those. So yeah, so back one, Luca. There we go. So the NIH don'ts, a lot of them are very similar to NSF. The PI, the whole team has to have the right complement of expertise to carry out all the proposed activities. You absolutely have to have a clear idea of the work that you want to conduct. We can't write a detailed work plan without input from you. We don't know your science. We can certainly we'll have a lot of input on that and figure out how to spin that right and present it right. But ultimately, the details do need to come from you. Again, as Luca mentioned, if the project is purely research with no commercial product in sight, that's not going to cut it because these are SBIRs, they're business grants. So the NIH, NSF, they're really, really committed to giving small businesses what they need to help them become self-sufficient and take off. So they really are committed to that. And of course, if it has no impact on human health, yeah, we go. Obviously, it's not suitable for NIH. We talked about facilities. One thing with the NIH you have to consider is if you're doing, no matter what, you have to consider the regulatory hurdles. If you've given no consideration to that, or you've shown that you haven't thought about that, that's a red flag for reviewers. So we're going to make sure that even in your phase one, when regulatory is off in the distance, that we're going to give that some level of attention. Okay, and again, this is a very heavy writing slide, but this, again, this gives us an idea of the writing process on the NIH side. It's very similar to the NSF, except we do not have to do a project pitch. However, we will, upon signing the contract, we'll start talking with you immediately about administrative items, long lead term items. We'll start discussing things with the program officer and making sure that they are interested and see if they have any advice on how to spin it one way or the other that would be more fundable or more within the Institute's mission. We'll start pushing you to get all your ducks in a row with any consortium agreements or collaborators, letters of support, start thinking about clinical studies, clinical partners if that's necessary. So we do that right off the bat. As soon as you sign with us, we're even though we may not be ready to start writing, we're going to start engaging you and making sure that these things get taken care of. And then on the proposal writing and submission side, we write a full grant proposal, including the research strategy, the budget. We'll help you with the budget, guide you on letters of support. There's a lot of, if you're doing human studies or clinical trials, there's a lot of documentation there, and a lot of it's boilerplate, and we know how to do it. So we work with you on those types of things. I've mentioned this a little bit before, but an important note is you are a crucial part of this writing process. It's not going to work if you throw us a page with 3 specific aims and say, write me a proposal. That proposal is not going to be a good one. We will do the heavy lifting. We will do the bulk of the work on getting these written, but we do need input from you all throughout the process. And that could be a weekly meeting for an hour a week, just to answer some questions. And it's certainly timely turnaround on drafts and things of that sort. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Just one thing that I want to add on this slide, similar to the process of writing. Once the phase 1 or phase 2 are awarded, we will also support into making sure that you can actually get the fundings, because they don't really give out anything unless you don't deliver documentation throughout the process. As we said before, I mean, we cannot do this work for you, but for sure we will make sure that this is done, and we the follow up on the writing aspect on the project execution is something that we cover. Now, I want to leave some time for question, if any. So I'll spare a couple of words on Inspiralia. So it's 25 of us based in the US, 155 as an overall as a group, because we are present also heavily in Europe. Miami is the headquarters for the US side of it. We are known for winning R&D grants for small businesses, and this is what we do day in, day out. Deep technical background is our unique selling point. We also have FEN technology, which provides technical support in case some project needs. So going back to the third of the subcontracting, however, our core business is into writing applications. 30% of our guys are actually PhDs. 500 million is what we use, what we lifted on the raising this amount, sorry. And the value for the clients that we have an hybrid fee model, mainly based on performance. So there is a small entrance fee just to make sure that you also engage, and the validation process. This is also a very long process that we do for free, but for sure we do it for free just to make sure that we are going to be successful afterwards. And the amount is actually taken from the outcome of the proposal. these are just some of the contacts, just to show you the people that we've got behind. I think on the last slide, I also left mine. So I would like to leave these 5 minutes or a bit more if necessary for any questions. There was one question that I just answered in the chat that was very quick, and I wanted just to make sure that all companies are welcome to apply to the SBIR, not just the new companies, let's say. So that as long as your team is there, is capable of delivering the project, you have a good team behind you, you have facilities, you are more than welcome to apply. I mean, it's about innovation, it's not about how the company structure. It's true, and this is something that I remember on top of my head, that companies with less than 25 people, 78% of the company that were awarded on the AFWorks were less than 25 people, but did not restrict in terms of timing. They were not all startups. So size also is another factor, but would be good. And Ellie is saying is actually recorded, so you can get back these slides for people who have joined slightly late. So any other questions or any direct question about your project? If you've got an idea, we could eventually, we won't be able to do a direct validation now, but it's something that we could actually take on the next call if necessary.
We had a couple coming in through the chat, Luca. Looks like there was one.
If we only work in Tennessee, no, we work throughout US. I mean, we are in Miami, we're located mainly in Miami. We also have offices in Boston. These are the two locations where we are, but let's say with pandemic and with tools like webinars and so on, I mean, we are actually able to work throughout the entire US. Mace, another question?
Yeah, Stacy had asked a question. What is the overhead for using the project management office for post-award management?
The overhead, so basically for the project management office, this is a service that we provide as part of the follow-up on the award. So is also included in what will be the success fee. 7% to 11% is also provided from the NSF, correct me if I'm wrong, from the NIH as a pure profit. So this is additional money that they give you on top of the grant. So I would say that this is the range where we would fit the cost that was actually asked. And there was another question, if we are likely to give grant to company with similar, if the project is actually the same, sorry, we will not be able to provide the same amount of grant. I mean, like we said before, we try to maximize the chances of success throughout the agency. So we see what would suit best. For example, the NSF would go on a lower TRL of the project. On the DoD AFWorks, we had a webinar last year. They would need projects that are slightly more advanced. So eventually for companies that have got a couple of projects, you can differentiate things, try to make it as different as possible so that you don't have to renunciate into one of the two. So getting double grant is not something that you want to do because you get spotted. So, but if you differentiate the task enough, you'll be able to really maximize chances of success.
Awesome. And I mentioned this in the chat as well, but we will, Luke, if you want to share those slides with me, I can send that out in the follow-up. We'll also send a recording. I know a couple of folks weren't able to join us today, so they'll have that and my contact information as well as Richard and Luca's. So if there are other questions that you think of after today, you'll have the opportunity to ask them.
Yeah, perfect. I think just to add, if there are no other direct questions at present, the validation process is something that we could do in case you think you have a valid project, let's say, okay? So after everything that you sort of listen, If you think that could work, we can have an open discussion with myself, Richard, or the rest of the team. So this is an half-an-hour call or 1 hour call to move things forward. And it's not just going to be, if it's a good fit on that conversation that we have, we will go to the next call that's going to be with the rest of the team, because like we said before, we might spend some time in the beginning, but it's best to do it now rather than just not being successful. I mean, it's obviously we're not going to win all the proposal. This is also to be said, because we don't work directly with the NSF or the NIH, but nevertheless, we have good understanding, and it's not easy to win, but if you know what you're doing, it's always better. Okay.
Yeah, and just a couple things to add. So about the validation process, you know, it doesn't matter what stage you're at. If you think you might be ready to write an SBIR, let's talk. You know, we'll talk to you anytime, and we'll give you feedback. You know, if you come and say, we want to do an SBIR, but I don't know who the PI is going to be, we don't have that expertise on board, or we're going to do a clinical study and we don't have a clinical partner, we'll say, okay, here are the things you need to do to get your ducks in a row. Why don't you go do those? And, you know, then come back to us, and, you know, once those things are ready, we'll talk, because we're a little far from writing right now, but you know, here's where you want to get to be able to put forth a competitive proposal. So we're happy to do that.
Okay, thanks, Richard. And to add, eventually it might not be suitable for the NIH, but as you could see, we keep following all the other agencies. So it might be fitting another agency. There might be a deadline coming up in 2 months, and with a bit of a twist, your project or like you could be adapted to fulfill other needs. So it's always good to have a chat. For sure, we need to have something innovative to discuss, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the companies that are attending today would have. So we're more than happy to follow this up. Okay, thank you for this hour.
Great.
Yes,
Thank
thank you guys for sharing all your expertise and just opening yourselves up to the wonderful questions that came through the chat. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your partnership.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Ali. Appreciate it.
Same here. Thank
All right,
you.
everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again.
Take care.
Thank you.